Hello and welcome to the Berkcast, the How to Train a Dragon podcast. I'm your host, HC. With me is.
Wolf.
And as How to Train a Dragon fans, I assume we all love dragons, correct?
More or less, maybe.
Well,
Unless you're stoic.
Wolf ruined my introduction. Let's do it from the top. Nah, I'm kidding. But anyway, I think we all were into dragons at one point,
Or
even
hunting
before
them.
How to Train a Dragon. Oh, maybe we got into dragons because of How to Train a Dragon. I'm not sure. But the point is, dragons are a thing. They're great mythical creatures who we all talked about at one point, and we watched and read certain media pieces with dragons in them. So we couldn't do this podcast and not actually talk about other media dragons that we may have seen or read about or played in our lives, and actually comparing them to the one and only dragon Toothless. So, yeah, I chose two dragons. Uh, Coincidentally enough, both of them are video game characters, and Wolf chose two dragons. So, Wolf, who are the two dragons you chose to discuss in this episode?
Sorry, was apparently muted.
Okay, that's a good start.
So, alright. A few difficulties apparently. Yeah. I chose to talk about Saphira and one other that I will wait and say a little bit later until we get to that point. Mostly because definitely not because I haven't figured out which one that might be yet.
Well, I chose Spyro the Dragon from, well, Spyro the Dragon, and I might also say I'm using the original Spyro, not the Skylanders one or the Legend of Spyro one. I'm sticking to the original because that's the one most people grew up with and the one most people love. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
going with the original. And the other one is Lilac from Freedom Planet. And to the people who ask me how in the world she's a dragon, the creators of the game say she's a dragon. She says she's a dragon. So, for all intents and purposes, she's a dragon. That's it. um,
We'll get to that point. Unless you want to go over her immediately right now.
well, because the first order of business is that, I think everybody listening to this podcast knows everything about Toothless. I think it's a safe assumption to make. So let's do talk about why what do we like about these other dragons. What do you like about this Saphira, for example?
Oh man. One of the all right. So I'm going to try something with our listeners at home and viewers at home. Here's an image of Saphira. No idea how this is going to work with the recording. Let's find out together. One of the things I like about Saphira is, and this is her movie version, so I can't say this is the same for the books. But Saphira is the dragon in
Eh,
from bleh. Saphira is the dragon from the Aragon books. She bonds with her writer, Aragon. Case in point, the name of the books. So, but one of the things I like about her, at least her design from the movies, is if you can look at her wing, you'll immediately notice something very interesting about her. Her wings are feathers. She does have scales like a regular dragon, but she actually has feathers on her wings as well. And that is something that I find extremely unique and interesting as a design standpoint. And whatever your opinion on the movie might be, I
Looks at
still
nostalgia critics review.
I still think her design is very unique and interesting, and it's something that I personally find very interesting about her compared to other dragons, and it sets her apart. And apparently I don't think I'm alone in that, because if you look up artwork of her, you'll see many other people have used the feather design from the movie, and it's been a little while, but I'm fairly certain that's not something the books created. That is something the movie created. But again, I think that's very interesting that so many people love that idea, And again, I'm one of those people who I enjoy that idea, and I think it's a really neat and interesting idea. Feathers on a dragon. It's not
Okay.
something you would inherently think about, but it is something that I personally enjoy a lot. It probably says a lot that that's the only thing that is different that I like a lot. But there are other stuff too, but we'll kind of get into it a little bit as we talk about these dragons more.
Mhm. Okay, so I'll start with Lilac because this is the one I'm familiar with the least, so
Well, then
might as well
that's
might
not
as
very
well
good
give.
because you have to explain to the audience because here's an image of Lilac and what she looks
Mm,
like.
yeah, but here's the thing. When I'm saying I'm familiar with her the least is because she's pretty recent, and I must have didn't get to play Freedom Planet until I think it was last year when it was finally released on the PS4. So you want to know why I like Lilacs? Here's your answer. She was supposed to, her game was supposed to be a Sonic game. That's one way to start with. But being serious for a second, the one thing you probably noticed if Wolf managed to get the picture up and rolling, or if you play the game, is that Linux design is not a traditional dragon. In fact, yeah, like we said, if the creators didn't say she was a dragon, and if she herself didn't introduce herself as a dragon, people would probably not wouldn't get that impression. And so, on the one hand, it may be off-putting that she says she's a dragon and yet looks nothing like it. But at the same time, it is a very interesting take on a dragon design, kind of like Wolf said with Saphira and the feathers. So and there's something about the again, like I said, it was supposed to be a Sonic fan game, so the artwork is obviously Sonic inspired, and there's something about those designs that really that obviously really attracts me to them. Like in the sense, it's fun to look at those designs. It's fun to draw these designs. So there's something about it that also unique for her species, and also just really fun to look at in motion and actually try and draw it every once in a while when I feel like drawing. And I guess another thing I like about her is that her abilities, not only is she ultra fast, but she can also dash in midair and stuff. Like from a gameplay standpoint, she's a very cool and fun character to play around with. So that's why I like Lilac. Okay, your turn again. Who's the other one? What do you, it is soon enough. We're going to talk about him eventually. So come on, spill. Hmm. Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
And I just realized something. I've been muted this whole time on OBS. So no
What
one
does
heard any
that
of
mean?
that.
Oh,
You
what are
heard
you? I heard everything,
Yeah, you
but
heard me, but I wasn't recording my audio, so my audio, no one heard any of that. So to say that again, the dragon I picked is Bahamut, and I'm picking the Bahamut from Final Fantasy X. This is why you don't play around with recording. This is why you don't play around with the recording and adding new images. You tend to screw stuff up. Oh well, I
Okay.
tried. But yeah, I picked Bahamut from Final Fantasy X, and I love the design of him from that particular game. I think it's really enjoyable and really fun to see. If you want a Bahamut that absolutely makes Toothless look like a puppy dog, check out the Bahamut from, I think it's Final Fantasy 14, and his and like the, I guess you'd say, cutscene that they have him in, because it's just him laying waste to a city. And one of the things that's amazing about that is you see him create a giant fireball, then take that giant fireball and destroy it to turn it into a bunch of tiny, smaller fireballs that go on to just lay waste to a city. It looks absolutely amazing to see. That, and he's probably as big, if not bigger, than the Red
How
Death.
do you spell his name? How do you spell his name for a second?
Bamut.
Okay, there we go. Let's see a picture of him. And oh my god, yeah, Toothless is a puppy next to this thing. What the hell is this? Okay, I don't think I'm sleeping. I am not sleeping this night, tonight, whatever.
Did you
Okay,
look up the version from Final Fantasy X, or just?
you know what? I looked 14 because you say the 14 is.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm, yeah. Hmm. Okay. Hmm.
Why does my mic? All right, it did it again. It keeps muting itself on the recording.
Ugh. Yeah, I think Toothless is messing with us because we're talking about other dragons.
Apparently, because my mic keeps muting itself. All right, I'm gonna have to pay closer attention to
Yeah.
that. Anyways, yeah, I enjoy Bahamut. We'll go with that.
Okay, so now for my second pick, the one, the only, probably the only purple dragon in existence until How to Train a Dragon will give us another purple one, I'm not sure. Spyro the Dragon. And you know, Wolf, I think I'm happy that your thing with putting pictures is not working because as much as I know of you, you will probably troll everyone and instead of putting the picture of the regular Spyro, you'll put the Skylander Spyro from the show taking selfies of his ass. Yeah, that happened apparently.
I don't
That was
have
a
that
thing.
one, but I do have the Skylanders show version of Spyro put up right now.
Ap- Apparently, some there was a picture running around. I'm assuming it's from the show. And as far as I know you, you will probably want to troll me, which you are doing according to what you're saying. But anyway, Spyro the Dragon. Probably the first dragon I personally came to like and
I
came
think
to know.
that's the case for many people, even myself a little bit included as well.
Mm. Because, you know, I think before Spyro, there wasn't really anything in the media that really. Well, there was a kids show called Dragon Tales, but I actually knew that were after Spyro. So, so yeah, Spyro was kind of my first dragon, I guess you could say. And yeah, and the thing I like about him is that, you know, he's like, you know, that your traditional video game good guy. He wants to help everyone and he wants to save the day, but at the same time he's kind of cocky and could be a bit egotistical and a bit of an asshole. But hey, that's why I love him so much, because sometimes his his remarks are kind of funny. Like I still love in the first game where you freed one of the dragons there, and the big dragon tells them, "I always believed in you, Spyro," and all of a sudden he goes, "You gotta believe," which is a reference to another PlayStation game, which we're not going to talk about in this episode. But the other thing Like there's also a thing I really like in the first game as well. When you get to the final world and the first dragon you free, there is a dragon you freed before, and Spyro actually brings attention to it, and he asks, "Hey, didn't I free you before?" So I like the fact that he has this kind of humor to him while he goes around saying saving the world. And yeah, there's also something about his design that it's cute, but at the same time could also be a bit cool and badassy in a sense. So yeah, I just like Spyro. He's a fun character, and yes, I'm totally looking forward to the new remake that's coming out.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we talked about the dragons we want to bring up in this episode. We said why we like them all so much. So how do we feel Toothless is better slash worse than these dragons? Like compare Saphira to Toothless, if you will.
Ooh. In some ways they're very similar. In some ways they're very different. Like, hmm. I guess in a way that it's better that in the world of Aragon, when a rider bonds with a dragon, they get the ability to use magic. That's, I guess you would say, is better. They live for much longer. I guess you would say that's also better. Like Hiccup's lifespan hasn't been increased because he bonded with Toothless, but in Aragon, since Aragon bonded with Saphira, like he can live for hundreds and hundreds of years now. I think one of the oldest living writers is in the book series is, if I'm not mistaken, almost 1,000 years old or something like that. So, yeah, you live a much longer life the second you bond with a dragon. One of the things that's, I guess you might say, is worse is that the dragons that are used for the riders don't hatch until they find a rider that they like or agree with, right? So basically, they can stay in an egg for a long time
Mhm.
and just never hatch. So you might consider that a bad thing. I don't know.
Mhm. Well, I'll start with Spyro this
Oh,
time.
one other thing I
Uh,
should mention
okay,
too
go ahead.
is that in because this plays a big part in the books and is very major for the dragon and the riders, that when a rider bonds with a dragon in that series, you create a link between the two of them where they can communicate with one another and they can talk through, I guess you'd say, telepathically.
Mhm.
They can read one another's thoughts and what they're saying to one another.
Okay. Okay, so starting with Spyro this time. Um, Honestly, Spyro and Toothless are kind of similar in that sense of they're both adorable but cool, but there's something cool and badass about them as well in terms of designs and their characters, and both could be pretty cocky and snarky in a sense. But
Well,
the main, the
Toothless learned
main,
his snarkiness from Hiccup, let's be honest.
debatable, debatable.
He got better
But
at it because of Hiccup at the very least.
okay, you know what? Let's go with that. But the main thing about it is that Toothless doesn't talk. At least movie Toothless doesn't talk, and Spyro does talk.
Hmm.
So in terms of who's necessarily better than the other, I'll say it depends on the person. It depends on the person you ask, because some people will tell you the Toothless is better because he's mute, while others will tell Spyro's better because he can talk. So I think it's kind of a pick your choice, pick what works better for you. In a sense, as a movie person, I like it more when I can get a lot of out of a character without dialogue. So I may give Toothless the edge here, but again, they're both really similar, and I can't necessarily say that someone is better than the other. But I will say this for Spyro's credit: he can breathe a lot more than just fire slash plasma. He can also fire ice, bubbles, and electricity. So that's good for him. Toothless can do that. Also, Spyro can swim.
So can Toothless.
How to Train Dragon 2 would like to have a few words with you on that one.
No, we literally see him fall into the water, swim back up to the surface, and just kind of sit there. So we obviously he can
Oh
swim.
yeah, right. Right,
And
right.
plus,
Okay.
Riders of Berk, he jumps into the water to save Hiccup, and I'm
Yeah.
guessing manages to make it back to the surface, so he can swim.
Yeah, okay. Sorry, a bit of a dipshit moment here. Excuse me, folks. But you know what? I guess Tooth has been like Sparrow being able to fly on his own. Actually, you know what? Sparrow doesn't fly; he glides, so that doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's something that Spyro is worse at. He can't fly
Yeah.
without the
Or
help of
at
magic.
least, yeah, at least if it's not, as long as it's a regular level and there's no power up, he needs power ups and specific speedway levels in order to fly.
Hmm.
But then again, 2000 needs hiccup, but long live the small difference, I guess. So there's nothing really better or worse about these two. It's kind of they're both really similar, honestly. It just depends who you like more.
Fair enough.
Okay, next one. Next up, the Bahamut.
I, there's not really much. I guess the better would be Bahamut is more powerful than Toothless. Though that's up for debate depending on possibly who you talk to and which version of Bahamut you use, maybe. Like, I don't know. And what's worse would
Well, let's say it
be
like this. Toothless is probably weaker than a level 99 Bahamut, but he's more powerful than a level 1 Bahamut. Let's go with that.
sure. I guess something that's also worse would be that Bahamut looks a lot scarier than Toothless. Although, even with that said, right, I enjoy the reason I say another reason why I say I enjoyed Final Fantasy X's version of Bahamut is I loved the summoning animation for Bahamut in that game because it was very, in my opinion, it was very adorable and it was kind of sweet to see the character summon Bahamut and then the character who summons Bahamut, to see her summon Bahamut and then kind of pet him and things like that, and him just be really gentle with her and her be really gentle with him. Like, it's a very sweet thing in my opinion.
Mhm. Okay.
So
And you can.
yeah,
That's it. Okay.
I don't really
So
know what to
Lilac.
do with that for that character. There's not much to him.
So maybe maybe that gives Toothless the edge. He has a lot more to him than Bahamut. Who knows?
I guess you could say that.
Hmm.
We'll go with that.
Okay. Let's go with that. You see this, folks? I give Wolf 2 days to prepare for this, and I need to make the case for him. So unprofessional.
Hey, you're one to talk, Mister. I chose this character who doesn't even look like a dragon. All she has is
Like I said,
horns. That's
like I
it.
said, the creators and herself say she's a dragon. It freaking counts.
You know what, audience? You answered this question. Did HC cheat or not?
Why did I cheat? She's a dragon on
Just
all
because
fronts.
just because the creators say doesn't mean she is. She does not look like a dragon at all. Just horns aren't enough.
And do the Ninja Turtles look like turtles?
Yes, they do. They have turtle shells and they're green.
Well, does Spider-Man look like a spider?
No, but that's not the point of Spider-Man.
Excuses, excuses.
He acts like a spider though, and that's what counts. Does she act
Okay.
like a dragon?
Um, Anyway, so
Aha.
I like.
Go
Okay,
ahead.
here's the thing. I was actually about to mention it, that Toothless is better in the fact that he actually looks like a dragon and does dragonish things. Um, because he can fly, he breathes fire, and you can look at this thing and say, yeah, I can see how that's a dragon. I look at Lilac and I'm like, this is a dragon. This this is a dragon. And I, again, I'm sorry to keep bringing this up, but seeing the background behind Freedom Planet, this probably needs to be addressed. Maybe because it was supposed to be a Sonic fan project. Maybe they just said, well, Sonic doesn't really look like a real hedgehog, so let's go nuts with this and design something and call it a dragon because, hey, the kids will buy it. I don't know, maybe.
I mean, it's worth saying, right? Like, before anyone hates on me, I don't hate the design. The design is fine. There's nothing inherently wrong with
No,
it,
that's
right?
not.
Like, she works as a
I
character. I'm just pointing out the fact that she definitely doesn't look like a dragon in the sense of what you would expect from, you know, a dragon species.
Yeah.
Taking, looking at, like, say, the dragon species from Dungeons and Dragons. You can tell they look like some form of a reptile, even if they don't exactly look like dragons. They have some reptilian traits.
You know what? Maybe I should have probably picked Godzilla. No, what do you think?
Godzilla's not really a dragon. Now, Ghidorah, however.
Yeah, you know what? Nah, I'm sticking with Lilac, but I would say this that yeah, in terms of the general design and the impression of a dragon, yeah, Toothless wins hands down. In terms of the character, though, I I would say Lilac is a bit more of a flawed character, which kind of makes sense because the story is about her, and
Mm-hmm.
in the How to Train a Dragon universe, at least maybe the third one will change that. We don't know, but the the character the story centers about is mostly Hiccup, and Toothless is the other main character, but he's mostly along for the ride. While Hiccup is the flawed character that needs to go into change and development. And in Freedom Planet, Lilac is that one character, and she has her problems and stuff she needs to go through. So in terms of character writing, I guess you could say, she is she has more to go through as a character in comparison to Toothless. But then again, kind of like with Spyro, there's the thing that Toothless doesn't talk as she does. So, that could also change how you approach a character in that sense. And I would, considering the gameplay side, I would say that Lilac is maybe faster, but then again, Toothless is pretty damn fast as well. So until I see official numbers that somebody calculated, I can't really comment on that.
Mm-hmm. Fair enough.
Okay, that's my analysis on the things. So, just for fun's sake, what would you want to see if Toothless and to some extent Hiccup met one of the dragons you chose?
I have no clue. I mean, I guess
Uh,
Saphira would. I guess Saphira and Aragon would probably be the more interesting of the two because you could look at how because you could if you decided to write a fanfic on it, you could look at how one group is bonded compared to the other group's bond and compare and contrast the two and them kind of be fascinated by how one was basically granted supernatural powers when they bonded with the dragon and the other one wasn't, and you could definitely have Hiccup be snarky to Toothless like, why didn't I get that from you, bud? Things of that nature. Like, where's my magical abilities from you, bud? Things of that nature, right? You could be snarky about it. That could be interesting and fun. Yeah, that could
you
be
know,
interesting and fun to see.
you know what could be fun with these two pairs?
What?
An epic rap battle of history.
Just going to mute HC now for the rest of the
No,
VOD,
no, no,
for the
no,
rest of the
no.
video.
Come on, Wolf. Let's have fun with this idea. This is the whole point of this
There's
episode.
fun, and then
Come on.
there's just silly and not very smart or
So
enjoyable.
what would you want then? A dance battle between the two?
I just said just them two, just the four of them interacting as characters.
Oh, come on. You want to see them
And see,
both
another
of
thing
them
is
rap.
interesting is that in the inheritance cycle, right? Other dragons can communicate with one another. So you could also play with the fact that maybe Saphira can't communicate with Toothless, or maybe she can. It's up for debate, I suppose, in how you want to do things. But that could be interesting as well, and you could see Saphira's character interact with Toothless's character.
Question: wasn't Sean Connery in Aragon?
No,
Or am I
Sean
Okay, so
Connery is in Dragonheart. He plays the dragon Draco.
yeah, I confuse. There are times when I confuse the two.
And,
So,
and
oops.
you know, another thing that's worth talking about is you brought it up earlier, the Nostalgia Critics review of the movie Aragon, right? Something in it he
Yeah.
says is that, and the movie is fairly different enough that it would be interesting if they had done it, that maybe she shouldn't have talked in the movie, because in the movie most of what she says is pretty much, yeah, we know that, we can kind of see that already happened on screen, we don't need you to reiterate what kind of just happened or what we already know. But she ends up doing that a lot. Her dialogue is mostly reiterating what we as an audience or the characters already know, which isn't very useful or helpful as far as character goes. In the books, I think she's quite a bit better, but in terms of the movie, he does say that maybe it would have been better if she couldn't communicate with him. And in terms of the movie, I would agree. I think that would have been a lot more interesting, because the movie's definitely not inherently faithful to the books in more
Yeah.
ways than one, so it
Well,
definitely would have been interesting to see.
Dragon.
True, right? And it definitely, is a point towards maybe sometimes it's worth not being faithful to change things up. That could have been an interesting thing to see as well. Their, Aragon and Saphira's bond, where Saphira can't actually communicate with Aragon. Could have been our first live action look at How to Train Your Dragon before How to Train Your Dragon.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll go with Spyro first, and I think it would be interesting to see Hiccup try and train this, because I'm assuming that Spyro would be smaller than Toothless, not by a whole lot, but small enough so that he wouldn't seem that threatening to Hiccup and Toothless at first. But then when he actually starts talking, imagine Hiccup's reaction to that.
Yeah, would definitely be interesting, especially considering you could have the snark off between the two. And
Yeah.
when HC, we should kind of give a little bit of a comparison in size. Spyro would probably be, if he stood up on his hind legs, as tall as Hiccup would be, just about.
You could be right, but then again, we never. I am because I'm saying I'm kind of assuming here because we never really saw Spyro with other humans, because there are no humans in the Spyro world. So
You see him with other characters that I would say are fairly close in the same size to Hiccup.
mhm, probably.
Again, a small dragon, but bigger than, say, the Terrible Terrors, or other small
Mhm.
dragons we've seen in How to Train Your Dragon.
Yeah, but yeah, I can only imagine Hiccup approaching Spyro, and then all of a sudden Spyro starts talking, and like you said, both of them has this snark and sarcasm to them. So them actually trying and out quip each other would be fun. And to the side is like somewhere in the middle, because one of them is the dragon, one of them is a human. What does he do about the whole thing? And then I would like to see Hiccup react to Spyro's other types of breath, because like I said, instead of just fire, he also breathes ice, bubbles, and electricity. So electricity is like, what the hell is this? Bubbles are
I mean,
bubbles.
technically the show's already done that. They had a dragon breathe 3 different types of fire from the show.
Yeah, but it's not a different type of fire. It's like breathing an entirely different thing. And considering the fact that they came across the Alpha, the Bewilder Beast, and it breathes ice, so it would be interesting to like maybe they'll draw conclusions regarding that. You could never know.
Mm, true enough, I guess. But I mean, Spyro is basically just a combination of a wildebeest, a regular dragon, a skrill, and a I guess you'd say a Skaldron.
Could be, could be. Actually, no. I was about to bring up the Legend of Spiral one, so no, I'm not going to do that, even for a joke. Oh no, I
Then
said
moving
I'm
on.
sticking with you. I'm sticking with the original anyway. So Hiccup and Toothless come across the Behemoth. What do they do? Except for leveling up.
You mean not the Behemoth? You mean Bahamut?
Bahamut.
There you go. I don't know. Again, like there's not a lot to this character. I mean, generally you
Alpha
don't
mode,
see.
maybe.
I maybe, but I mean also this character isn't something that's traveling throughout the world as well. Like it's a summon, so generally it's not around. There's no real good way to describe it. So you would have to run into a human character who summons this character. So there's your first thing.
Okay.
It
Well, with
it could be
Hiccup's luck of
interesting.
running into
I
stuff,
don't know.
he.
It all depends. I mean, I guess it would all depend on how you wrote it and what you wanted to do with it. I suppose really, and which
Yeah.
character you wanted him to run into from Final Fantasy, who could summon Bahamut. Pick one. There's I don't know how many at this point.
hmm Maybe.
Pick a game world that you want to put Hiccup into, I suppose, and go with that one.
Yeah. Depend. So it all depends on the Final Fantasy game people decide to put Hiccup on. Mothers, get on that.
I would say for if you want to see a Red Death fight that Toothless probably wouldn't win, check out the like cutscene that's in Final Fantasy 14 that introduces Bahamut, if I'm not mistaken. That again looks amazing, and pretty sure Toothless probably wouldn't win that fight.
Okay, so if we move on to Lilac, with the exception of the talking, which again would be Spyro's thing, so maybe Hiccup wouldn't be surprised by that. But I think the biggest surprise would be, is this a dragon? That's not a dragon.
There would probably be discussions, I'm sure. She would say she's a dragon, Hiccup would disagree, and then they would argue.
hmm
But not sure how many people would want to see a Sonic fan character mixed with How to Train Your Dragon.
hmm
just, just gonna just gonna be honest.
Well, to be honest, what kind of fan character or what franchise would people want to see Hiccup interact with?
I mean,
To be honest.
I know for a fact people have wanted to see him act with Daenerys Targaryen from Game of Thrones because there's actual fan fiction written for that one,
Mm.
and it does work. So I also know for a fact that people have wanted to see him interact with Ratchet from Ratchet and Clank because there's fan
Yeah,
fiction for
that's
that one.
yeah. You know what? Not only is there a fan fiction for that one, there's a fan fiction for that what I myself wrote.
Yeah. So as we can see, people have done him interacting with unexpected characters.
hmm You know what? I'm actually going on fanfiction right.net
Oh
right
no.
now to just to see, just. But I will say it will be again. It will be one of those interesting things that there's a dragon that doesn't really look like a dragon, and then it can also talk. So that would probably be interesting, especially because she doesn't really breathe any fire. She's up on two legs. She talks, she runs, she can't really fly. So, again, all of those things. There you go, Freedom Planet. And let's see. Sonic the Hedgehog, Xovers, Naruto, Sonic Boom, Dragon Ball Z, Powerpuff Girls, Gundam UC, Lilo and Stitch, Danny Phantom, Cave Stories, Soul Eater, and Shantae. I would probably want to read the Shantae one, but other than that, no How to Train a Dragon. Of course, it's rated M.
Anyways,
Why would all the interesting crossovers be freaking? Bleh?
should point out rated M doesn't necessarily mean what you think it means. Just
It usually means what I think it means. Don't.
I was gonna say, there's a big chance it means what you think it means, but it doesn't always mean that. Always.
How much do you wanna bet?
Moving on, back on topic.
Yeah, back on topic though. So yeah, I said I can just imagine, not necessarily the meeting itself, but Hiccup like coming back to Berg and finding the other writers and be like, guys, you're not going to believe this. We came across a dragon which doesn't look like a dragon, but she can talk. And she walks on two legs and can only dash for a few seconds, but she can't actually fly. And she doesn't breathe any type of fire. And she kicked our ass in hand-to-hand combat. No, I'm the only one who think it will be funny and cool. Okay.
Sorry, sorry, I'm not gonna be of much help on that one.
Yeah. Well, maybe people who play the game will.
Maybe they'll agree with you. I don't know if I will.
Maybe.
I'd have
People
to
who
see
played
it.
Freedom Planet and are How to Train Dragon fans, comment below and tell me if if I have somewhat of a good direction.
Comment below and let us know that you even exist.
Yeah.
I don't believe you do.
Well,
HC's not proof.
Wolf, people actually played Freedom Planet, right? It's getting a sequel after all.
No.
Sure, enjoy living in your denial.
It's a supposedly good game. I've never played it. Um, do you think I think it'd be worth mentioning while we've not gone over them, maybe a couple of you know um honorable mention dragons that are very popular or well known.
Hmm. Here's the thing, I actually don't really know a lot of other dragons,
Well, I
but
have a list here.
well, maybe I'll recognize something. So shoot.
One of the more popular ones I would say is Smog. Definitely a popular dragon that people know of and would definitely probably wanted us to have mentioned, but we haven't.
It's time for one of HC's bold claims. HC doesn't like Lord of the Rings, therefore he doesn't really care.
I'm gonna just let you drown on that one by yourself.
Here's the thing, I saw the first Lord of the Rings, didn't really like it, so I never had any interest in the sequels or the Hobbit trilogy. I know Smaug is popular and is voiced by Benedict Cumberbatch, so that's really awesome. But other than that, I really have no opinion. Sorry.
I would recommend it, but again, it's entirely. I do get, it's not going to be for everyone, movies or books, especially the books. So I do
Mhm.
understand it. Other dragons that are worth mentioning that are fairly popular, I would say, are the dragons from Game of Thrones. Obviously, Drogon. Uh, it is
It's time for
Viserion,
another
and
HC bold
let me
claim.
get
He haven't
all
seen
of their
Game of
names out.
Thrones.
I've read the books. I've not seen the show, but they're definitely popular dragons, and they're definitely. I wouldn't. I don't know if I would necessarily say they have any major character to them, but they're definitely well liked and popular dragons, or at least Daenerys is. So there's that. But it's Drogon, Rhaegal, and Viserion, if I'm not mistaken, are their names. And then
Okay.
there's Dragon Ball Z, the dragons from that one. So take your pick on which dragon that rises up from the Dragon Balls that you like,
Wolf,
I
I
suppose.
already went through. This will be my third bold claim in a row. Cut me some slack.
I mean, again, I'm mentioning honorable mentions here. There's American Dragon Jake Long. That was an okay, fun show, if I'm not mistaken.
Is that the one where we Dante Basco?
I think so, yeah.
Hmm. Haven't watched that. I just know that he's there. And speaking of, does Maleficent count?
I guess so. She does turn into a dragon. If you count American Dragon Jake Long, then I guess you could count her as well.
Okay, so Maleficent is awesome.
And then there's Ghidorah from Godzilla, worth a mention.
Oh yeah.
Godzilla himself, I guess, technically counts.
Something. I'm not. It's kind of canon only to the second series and not everything. But He's more of a dinosaur than a dragon.
Eh, depends on who you talk to, I suppose.
Yeah,
There's
he's
obvious.
Godzilla.
There's also
That's the
obviously
species.
true. There's also obviously Draco from Dragonheart, voiced by Sean Connery. So obviously he
Yeah.
definitely gets some props because it's Sean Connery doing the voice of a dragon. Nothing could go wrong there, and it doesn't.
Nothing. I remember seeing the ending to this movie, but not the whole thing.
It's an alright movie. It's definitely worth a watch.
Okay.
Maybe a little bit dated
Uh,
at this point, but still fun. Then can never forget Neverending Story. Falcor definitely counts and is worth a mention.
yeah. The first movie Falco, not the third one.
Hmm. And then, yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna even bother going through and naming everything. Just tons of different dragons and dragon species and Dungeons and Dragons that are definitely worth a mention because a lot of them are really cool. They're really interesting and enjoyable. So
Yeah.
I guess if you're a Dungeons and Dragons fan, there's your shout out. If you're not, go check some of that stuff out because a lot of it's really interesting and enjoyable and neat.
Okay. Let me think if there are any other dragons I could probably mention.
I'm sure people will get mad at us, or maybe not
You
mad
know
at
what?
us. I don't
You know what?
know.
I can't believe I forgot about him. Freaking Mushu. Mushu is awesome.
I was going to say that as well. Mushu.
Mushu is freaking awesome and I love him.
There's another dragon from another DreamWorks series that we should probably mention.
The female dragon from Shrek.
Hmm. People might get mad at us for not mentioning her. I don't know.
To be honest, what's her character outside of the fact that she loves Donkey?
I agree. But, we've mentioned her now. Now you can't say we haven't, for good or ill.
We brought, if people didn't already comment and close the video by this point.
There's also, probably one of the other cooler dragons you could ever hear of or find out about, Ridley from the Metroid series.
Yeah, I never really looked at him as a dragon, more as like an alien kind of thing. But yeah, he could count. He could count.
I mean, whether you do or not, he's a dragon that goes on to lead a band of space pirates. To almost, I think, taking over like the universe because he's just that good at being a space pirate and he's that smart at being a space pirate. So
Yeah, and,
pretty awesome dragon, whether he
you
is or
know,
isn't.
for a second I wanted to joke about that one famous scene from Metroid Other M, but I'm not going to do that.
Probably best not to.
Yeah,
And I
I will.
suppose
I will say fuck that scene, but that's another story.
I suppose it's also worth mentioning the dragons from Skyrim. I don't know how popular they might be, but Alduin and Parthenax they have characters. They're there, worth a mention.
Yeah.
And then
You know,
anything and
you know,
everything you can think of from different mythology and folklore, there's a mention for that too.
you know what? I'm surprised there was never actually a dragon-themed superhero.
I'm sure there was.
I couldn't think of anything at the top of my head. So I think unless you have one last minute addition, I think we've gone through them all.
I would say so.
Okay, so that's been all for this episode of the Berkcast. What dragon would you like to compare to Toothless, and what other dragons beside the Haunted Iron Dragon characters do you like? Let us know in the comment section below. You can also tell us about all types of dragons on the Berkcast Tumblr page, where we are known as Berkcast Team. On Twitter, we are Berkcast with a capital B, capital C. And you can find all of us on the Berg forums and the Haunted Iron Dragon Discord. So until next time, I was HC.
And I've been Wolf.
And we will talk to you all next time. Take care.
Bye bye.